I don't even know what question to ask Bilha, because Bilha can answer anything. So Bilha, like I said, is my co-founder. We've done quite a bit of ideating, strategizing, all that stuff together. But she also runs an organization called Great Carbon Valley, and she had to start it from scratch, convincing people that you can do direct air capture. In simple terms, getting what? Carbon from the air, and then sequestering it into the ground, and that's the mineralization bit of it. It's complex, it's new. Even the people who have sort of done it before are still figuring it out. It's only done in Iceland and all that stuff. So Kenya is, trying to do it, but it's not the only organization or company she's built. She's built a tech company. Of course, she's worked with us in Jacob's Ladder. And I just want her to speak to the process of being an entrepreneur in this part of the world and how it relates to, or rather how that journey is, and one of the maybe advice you can give those people in the room, because we do have a couple of young people in the room, beyond what Joseph has said. How do you actually be bold enough to build something with the mind to either exit or to make it large enough for it to be the reference point in that sector?
Thanks, Ella. It's kind of hard to speak. I mean, the panel has been amazing, so we feel like you're speaking after really great people, so thanks everyone. It's very rare you learn new things from panels, so I've actually learned a lot from everyone on the panel, so thank you, my fellow panelists. It's a really complex question. I think that Mbuzi can literally be about how to build companies in Africa and die while doing it, but and literally it's death. I remember once when we were, we were raising money in my previous company, and I had an investor tell me, this company, if you had just the same team, don't even do anything, just move it to America tomorrow, the valuation goes up like 10x. It just gives you a sense of just how much perception, risk perception, all the different issues that people have about Africa. But going to your question on what it takes to be an entrepreneur, one of the things I realize is ideas are plenty. I don't think anyone, I don't think there's any idea we usually see and you're like, someone will be like, I thought about doing that. How come I didn't do it? The difference between all of us who get ideas, or you probably read a story, you're like, maybe it'd be interesting if something like this if someone was doing something, or you're facing a problem, you're like, I wonder if someone can solve this. The difference between all of us and the people that actually become entrepreneurs is one, just showing up. Literally, just show up. Every morning, wake up, send that email. Then if you're not quite sure what's going to happen, answer the employees who are not, just keep showing up. That idea of showing up is a thing that actually makes a big difference. I'm sure if we talk to our fish, entrepreneurs or aquaculture entrepreneurs, the fact that they came for a training and then they were trained and they're like, oh, I could do this, and you go and actually dig a hole and you show up and every morning you do something about your fish. By the time you're done a year later, you're very different from the person who did not show up. And so it sounds very basic, but that idea of just wake up every morning and keep doing it, in one way is one of the things that actually makes a big difference between people that actually do stuff and people that don't do stuff. And that usually applies across everything. And one of the things that Stella usually makes a lot of us do is actually work out. Okay, we all work out, but but she has this thing of even if you just run for like two steps, just show up and run for 2 steps, it will help. The next day you run 10 steps, and next thing you're actually running a marathon for some people, not all of us, but for some people. So that's one thing. But then secondly, and I think I like what and I love, I'm biased, but I love the work that Jacob's Ladder is doing. But all of our partners. I think it's important, and I'm just looking back at my journey of when we were starting my previous tech company, and it was virtually impossible to raise funding, so we actually had to use money from our pockets. Not as easy, but we figured it out. But now people are starting to recognize that there are solutions in Africa, people can do stuff in Africa. There's actually a lot of capital that sits in Africa. The problem is a lot of that capital doesn't go into building businesses. It's starting to do that. If you think about it, most of our capital usually goes into illiquid things like, let's buy land, let's buy buildings, etc. So how do we begin to encourage people that have funding? It doesn't have to be a lot of money. How do we begin to, because we don't need a lot of money to start businesses in Africa. Usually people will be like, a couple of $1,000s is just what you need, and sometimes that's enough. So how do you begin to encourage more capital here to begin to fund ideas here. Because it's our money, it's here, it's not going anywhere, and it's not looking to leave the continent. And so, again, Jacob's Ladder, UNEP, all these, the people in the room, to the extent that we can begin to encourage local capital to invest in local businesses, I think we'll go a really long way, even as we begin, because even as we're still telling the story of, let's go out there, let's get funding. And so I think that's the other thing, which is about how do we change the capital or the financing bit? Because you'll always hear, constantly there's always a question of what are the things that entrepreneurs face as challenges. Capital is always number one, number two, like it always comes up, and regardless of where you are. But I think for me, there's a question around, is there something different we can do about it? And lastly, I think, just wanted to, again, just shout out to this idea of skilling. It's interesting that we're building a global company. We're trying to get global investors to come and invest in Kenya, and we've gotten some really good, good mileage. But interestingly, one of the stories I keep telling people is you want to invest in Africa because it's the youngest growing continent. And within the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to be the continent that has labor. China is growing. I spent the whole day today with one of the largest Chinese companies that's looking to come to work with us. And it's interesting because they're also saying that they're growing old and their market is actually stagnating. So in as much as they're manufacturing, they don't know who they're going to be selling to. We actually have the opposite problem. We have all these young people who are going to be needing homes, they're going to be needing roads, etc. So to the extent that we can skill them, and so thank you again for the work you're doing, skill young people and begin to present a really skilled workforce out there really helps our case. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.